First of all, I'm not sure I accept the premise of the question, because we can't solve the problem if we don't get a better deal from the state. And the simple fact is, these formulas do not come down from the heavens. They do not come down from places other than from elected officials that go down there and vote to decide how to allocate money. And I think it's interesting that we think we have a good relationship with the delegation. Our delegation brought us no money this year, nothing, to help us in education. If that's a good relationship, that's not the kind of approach I want to take. Now, they get tired of me talking about it, and I've lost some good friends over it, but the fact is, I didn't go into politics to make friends, and some people say I'm extraordinarily successful in that regard. Having said that, this is about making sure that we understand that when education is being discussed, the rubber meets the road when that excellent teacher is in front of that student. So teacher raises have got to be part of the equation. They just absolutely have to be. So we got to do a couple of things. First of all, we have got to separate the teacher negotiation from the administrative negotiation. It's not to say anybody's not important, but we absolutely have to be able to have this conversation in any organization that says, if this is really where we have to ramp things up, then that's where we have to be able to get to. Second of all, we need to recognize that even just a couple percentage points is going to be on the order of $9, $10, $12 million. The commissioners need to keep the pressure on to keep funding, as we were fighting for today. We also need to make sure, though, that we're looking at other efficiencies. One of the things I'm most proud of is that about a year and a half ago, I created something called the Combined Education Commission, or Committee. We brought Board of Ed, delegation members, and the commissioners together before the budgets were set, before they went to Annapolis, to reach an agreement. It was the only year that we didn't have a contested budget in the 8 years I've been here. Unfortunately, the second time I invited folks to come, nobody from the Board of Education wanted to participate, and only one delegate did, because people struggle to be held accountable. We have got to sit down together and face the problem, and the money is there, I can tell you that.
Mr. Kyler.
Well, sadly, those answers sound good, but really, you got to look at the fact that that's exactly why we're in the problem we're in. Board of Education members will tell you, well, we don't tax, so it's not our responsibility. Delegates will tell you, well, we don't set salaries for teachers in the school system, so it's not our responsibility. And then it converges on a Board of Commissioners that say, well, there's only so much we can do, and therefore, we have all these things that are already off the table, and we don't come to any conclusions. That's exactly what got us into this situation. The fact is, the Board of Education needs to come to the table with a budget that understands that if they're advocating for something beyond what's in the budget capabilities, which we put out 6 years in advance, then if they're advocating for a tax increase, they ought to advocate for it. And the same thing is true of where the delegation stands. In getting everybody together to have these discussions is the only way this problem gets addressed. Now, the reality is I have sat in the hot seat, and I can tell you that it is not required tax increases to meet the negotiated amounts of money for the school system. And so one of the things that I'm most proud of is that when my first year in the system as a commissioner, Commissioner Rothschild and I spent a lot of time arguing about whether it should be $162 or $164 million. This year, just 7 years later, we're funding at a level that's almost $30 million a year more than we were back then. Why did that happen? Because we raised taxes? No, we would have scared off more people. Believe me, that was the strategy Maryland used for years. We reduced taxes enough to bring economic development here. You see the buildings going up all over the place. When those businesses come in, they don't tax you as citizens. They pay their fair share of taxes. We get more money, and we can do more with it. We've got to build the base of community that wants to come here. You don't do that by raising taxes. We need more community here and more businesses here. You're seeing the effects of a strategy that's worked, but at the same time, we've got to sit back and say, okay, if we're going to do this, then we've all got to buy into the strategy. So we know what to do at the school level, the commissioner level, and what we need, and to know what we have to go to Annapolis. Everybody's responsibility to be part of this discussion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kyler.